It appears we must redefine the nature of our association. Well, hi there. My name is Charles Ray Dawson. I'm the Associate Broker, Residential Sales Manager of ProStar Realty. This is the Unnamed Real Estate Podcast, episode 215. Hope you guys are all having a great day. The reason for that teaser is, one, I never pass up a chance for a great tombstone quote. And the second one is tied into the title of this particular episode, House Daddy. Who's your daddy? All right, because, yeah, clients are weird. My clients especially. So, love each and every one of them. You know, just want to sit there and smother them to death some days, but yeah. Last week we covered tasks and, you know, how to get things done and this and that and the other thing. And over the course of the negotiations and defining the nature of our association, decided that the best way to meet the needs of my client is to text her every morning with what she wants or what I want from her. And this is what you need to do for me, kitten. And I'm sitting there talking to one of my friends, and he's like, that's, you're describing like some really daddy-dom sub relationship you're developing. And I was like, oh crap, I am. All right. But regardless, every morning I'm going to wake up in the morning, think what I want this client to do. And I go, okay, client, this is what I expect from you today. All right. So we'll see how this one works out. But I just thought it was funny. So the term house daddy popped in my head, and I'm claiming that as one of my titles, along with the Lord of Cats and He Who Must Be Obeyed. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm your house daddy. So daddy says, pay attention to the numbers. All right. So we got a lot of news, a lot of interesting news this week. Department of Justice has sent a letter over to the courts again going, yeah, that little agreement that you guys did, we don't think you're upholding the spirit of what we intended when we came down on you. And longtime listeners will know when that settlement first came out, this time last year, in fact, according to Facebook, I had some reservations, and I was like, I don't think this actually meets. They're still trying to figure out how to do what they want to do. All right. And I've known a lot of people in my life. It's like, okay, I won't do that. I'm just going to do this instead. That's the same thing with different words. And that's what I personally felt our initial changes to the system was going to be. It's like, you're just throwing more words on it. You're just calling things different things, but they're the same thing. You just gave them a new title. All right, now you're saying it means something different. All right, and I'm a textualist. I really am. It's like, what did they mean when they wrote the words? Not your new meaning and your new definition of those words. All right, just because this word means something else now, okay, does not mean it applies to things that were written back then. All right, so if you call it something, and then people say if you call it liberalism and everybody's upset because liberals are icky poo pad, you don't get to suddenly start doing the same things and call it progressive. No, we're not liberal, we're progressive. It's the same thing. All right. Hey, you repubs in the audience, or I can go exactly the same way with you guys, all right? Because as soon as liberal open up, you guys suddenly, oh, I'm a classic liberal. No, you're not. Well, you are, but it's a thing, so quit changing words on people. So Department of Justice comes in and says, you're just changing the words. And now here in Arizona, you could see with the docs that have changed, they got rid of the things that I really went, hey, wow, yeah. So Arizona really does a great job of leading the way. I still, to this day, argue Arizona should have took those lawsuits individually in our state with our state documents, because the same arguments that worked in Missouri wasn't going to work here. But now rolled. All right. So editorial aside and everything like that, we're going to see some continuation. I still think we're good here in Arizona, and I still think Arizona agents are still doing it the way the Department of Justice wanted to see it done. You, the buyer, are paying me, your agent. Now, if you want to write an offer with concessions from the seller to offset your costs of closing, that's completely legit. If my paycheck is included in those costs, that's completely legit. End of statement. Right? So we'll see how this one plays out. So that was the first thing wanted to cover. Another thing came in. Our commercial side came out with a little text message to everybody. They've been talking to some specific builders here in town. I'm not going to name the builder, all right, because I don't know if this is proprietary information. All right, but person had just finished cost projections for a builder here in town for 2025 and 2026, with or without potential tariffs that may or may not happen. All right, concrete is 7% of a single family home build. All right, so the entire cost of the house, $400,000 to buy a house. All right, and it's 7%. That's $28,000 actually is the concrete, like physically the concrete mix that goes in, not the assembly and everything, the actual concrete. All right. A 25% tariff on that would only increase the cost of the build of the house by 0.175%. Okay, so that's not enough to really impact the cost of a house significantly for tariffs on imported concrete. This particular case, all right, they had met with a major roof tile vendor who had enough inventory to supply the builder's needs for a year, all right, which was include 1,200 homes. So 1,200 homes are projected to be built by this builder, and they already have the roofing tiles in stock, all right. Will not be impacted by any tariffs starting today, right? In fact, they have enough for all the builders they supply to for an entire year. Okay, so if tariffs go into effect today, all right, you're not going to see impact at the house level when it comes to the tiles and when it comes to the concrete for a year. So that's a 2026 problem. All right. They also identified a local source for cement so they can buy it here. Buying American. All right. So this is good info for those things. Trump's tariffs will cause a market downturn. All right. Now, that's just concrete. We're not looking at lumber. All right. Labor, well, if we have a lot less illegal aliens to hire on the work sites, under the table, well, that they're going to have higher costs on the builder side, and it's going to be passed on. So, but on the concrete side, that's what that industry is looking at. And every industry out there is looking at these individual issues and saying, how is it going to affect us? All right. This means that when they send their reports upstairs, there's big asterisks on everything, and those CEOs then have to report it at their shareholders meeting, which makes Wall Street all nervous and squiggly because Wall Street does not like uncertainty. So that's the housing effect of all of this at this point. Other things that we got going on, you've been hearing me saying that it is a buyer's market for, quite some time now, okay? Well, the numbers are coming in, and now I got numbers to back up why I say it's a buyer's market. All right, let's go to the numbers, all right? For you sellers out there who still think you have a stick in this game, you don't have a stick, all right? Okay, these are the numbers for March 19th, 2025. Actives this week are 24,603, up 424 from the previous week. New listings were at 2,594, which is down 118. Our contracts were at 2,495, an adjustment of 2 from last week. And our closings are 1,692. Coming soon to MLS near you is 829 new listings. Once again, the big numbers are down below. Supply is at 98.3. Remember, the supply is based on population in the area and how many houses we should have on the market for our population based on historical averages. All right, we are almost average, guys. We are almost right there at 98.3. But the story is always on the demand side. Demand is at 80.3. So for every 100 houses you got, or every 5 houses you got, you only got 4 people looking at them. Somebody's going to lose. All right? It gives us a comfort number report of 81.7, and that is still a little bit lower than the week before. Going to our individual neighborhoods and everything like that, we can see that Chandler is still leading the pack and still following at 141.3. They're down 5. Cave Creek, Avondale, and Glendale have all grown. So has Buckeye and Maricopa. Apparently people are starting to listen to Ray and are looking down at Buckeye and Maricopa for where the bargains are. You also see people looking at their first-time homebuyer programs, coming in with first-time homebuyer money, and they're going into Buckeye and Maricopa because that's where the deals are at, right? And then for the rest of the buyers markets out there, we have Surprise, Queen Creek, Goodyear, and then Peoria is almost there. They might be there by next week at this rate, all right? But they are into a balanced market along with Mesa and Glendale and Avondale and Cave Creek. Phoenix is still Phoenix, Fountain Hills, Tempe, Gilbert, Paradise Valley don't care. Scottsdale and Chandler are still considered sellers markets, all right? But remember, Ray, you keep saying it's a buyer's market, but I'm looking at all these houses that are saying seller's market. Real estate is regional, okay? It's very, very specific. It's very granular in some cases. Remember, when we're talking Phoenix, we're talking Maryville, all right, all over the place, okay? There's only certain, Little Arcadia, Central Phoenix, all right, Moon Valley. Phoenix is a pretty big place, right? Some places are still very much, and some places are very depressed. You need to look at your individual zip code when you do these things. And if I was going to individual zip codes, this show would take forever, right? But the new numbers I wanted to show you, and this is also off the Cromford Report. All right, let's start with the first one. This one right here. I can sit there and say we have more inventory than forever, but a chart shows you we have more inventory than forever. This chart goes all the way back to 2021, okay? Starting at 2021, about 6,000, all right? We started this year at 20,000, right? We are currently right here, all right? This is a slope. I want you to see these charts because I want you to see the lack of seasonality. That's a flag, right? Seasonality is when a market responds to what time of year it is. When are we at? What season are we in? All right. You don't actually see a lot of seasonality on this chart, but you can see this little spike. This year, 22, this year, 24, this year, 23. See how the inventory, this is probably the classic example, 2023. Start off with high inventory, go down to low inventory in July, August. Then you see the inventory start building back up. All right. This is that standard seasonality. It used to go like this, where you'd have a spring fling and then you have a fall. All right. And you'd have two. We don't see those things anymore. These are a more gradual slope. All right. But here's 2021, really low inventory, really low interest rate still. Then we see those interest rates when they suddenly decided, all right, the COVID dollars started hitting the market. Inflation became a thing, so they cranked up the bond rate and everything. Interest rates spiked. All right, you can see right here in April we saw it. In May I was screaming about it. In June, all my sellers decided they wanted to put their houses on the market in June because they didn't want to put it back here in February because that was hard. All right, so boom, and here we go. All right. Peaking right about there in that October, November time period, and then start slowing down as houses come out of the market, as people are still buying, even though it's not the best time for them. All right, mostly you're smart investors who know how to catch people at their weakest. All right, nobody wants to list their house before the holidays. Holidays come in and then pop. Okay, this is what happened cool in 2023 that threw everybody for a curve. All right, inventory starts working down. Inventory kept working down. Where's my spring bump? There wasn't a spring bump that year, all right? Because people could not afford to leave their houses. All the churn houses, people who were moving up or moving down, whatever, did not show in 2023. Right? But the buyers are there. They're slowly drawing stuff up, those who could afford those interest rates. And then we see the inventory as the buyers quit looking in August, start coming back up, but houses are still trickling in. All right, they gave you 2023. 2024 was a dead year for real estate. All right, it's one of the slowest on records. All right, you see a slight trickle up, you see a spike right about here in November, and then stuff starts coming off. Why is stuff starting to come off? People are letting their listings expire. People are taking their houses off the market before the holidays. Well, all these people who took them off decided to slam them back on, and this is what we've been looking at this year. We have not seen a spike like this since 2005. All right, a spring slide. If you notice, normally we come in with a big spike and then it builds down. All right, we're not seeing that this year. That's a sign of a buyer's market. It's not a sign of a crash, but it is a sign of a price correction. Big difference between the two. All right. So in 21, 22, and 23, active listing counts drop after the first couple weeks of the year. In 2024, we started seeing them grow steadily, but in 2025, seeing them ramp up much more quickly, rising from 20 to nearly 25 after 11 weeks. All right. That's over 25% growth. All right. These listings are offering lots of choices to buyers and giving sellers a problem they don't need. Right now, there is no sign of the trend coming to an end. While demand has improved a little since the start of the year, it is nowhere near the level needed to absorb this amount of inventory. That's a flag. All right. And if we look back on 2005, inventory grew very quickly from April onwards and continued to grow throughout 2006. Apart from brief drops during the December holidays, all right, that we're used to seeing. It took 15 months before closed prices started to weaken in mid-2006. Now, let me repeat that line. It took 15 months before closed prices started to weaken in mid-2006. All right? Just because your Cromford report numbers start going into a buyer's market, it takes some time before you really start seeing the prices getting affected. All right? And this is how it's going to work, all right? Currently, we have been in a buyer's market for only a short time, but closing prices are still rising. Under current conditions, this is unlikely to ask. First active pricing will fall. That is the price that houses are listed at, right? Sellers who are still thinking, oh, I want top dollar, right? Sooner or later, they start realizing, wow, I'm looking at all these houses sitting out there for forever. How do I stop that? Agents get better at explaining that to sellers. All right. And then we start to weaken, and, and then so they're going to start listing it for less. All right. That's the first thing you're going to see. All right. Then pricing for under contract listings will fall. The ones that get under contract will start being lower than the average. And then, all right, you'll see the closed listings fall. You'll see that curve happen. The ask, the under contract, what we actually closed at. It's when those closings start falling. That's when you got to start throwing up flags, right? Because remember, when those appraisers come in, they're looking at the last closed first, all right? And when they see those, if you have a house under contract for 45 days, and you and another house go under go on the market at the same time at the same price, they get selected. They accept the lower offer, all right? They close before you. They become your comp, all right? So this process takes many months to play out and is affected by seasonal patterns too, with the first and second quarters being strong in the third week. So now this is going to be a really interesting third quarter. Let's be honest, right? Things could always change, especially if we were to see a substantial drop in interest rates. However, the market's current trajectory, pricing will have to adjust down to get rid of excess inventory. So what's going to save us is more buyers hitting the market with lower rates. All right. Now here's the problem. Consumer sentiment. That's not a word that's easy for me to say. Consumer sentiment. How comfortable do they feel making the biggest transaction of their life at this particular moment in time? Right? If you think everything's great and wonderful, oh my God, like my jobs came back to the foundry and stuff like that. All my cousins are employed again, and I'm feeling good. And hey, Maricopa County's just got another $100 billion of investment in chips, and I'm feeling froggy, and the wife's got a promotion and this and that and the other thing. Let's go buy a house. All right. It's a lot better than, wow, my family works for the federal government. Everybody around me is employed. It's crying and whining and sniveling and all this other kind of things. Oh my God, what are we going to do? I'm not going to make any major lifestyle changes right now. All right. Consumer sentiment depends on which side of that or how you feel. In the last decade, white-collar workers have felt very, very bullish. Life is going great for them, right? Nobody can take my job. I went to college and learned to code. Well, now we got AI's coding for people. Now people are getting a little squirrely out there. People who actually do stuff with their hands, all right, are starting to feel more confident. It's going to be real, okay, wow. My brain goes in some weird directions somehow. Luxury beliefs. Luxury beliefs is a sociological term for a belief that would normally have negative impact on the person who believes it. But if they have enough resources at hand, they can profess the luxury belief because they have the resources to make up for any damage that it does to them. All right? Very important term. Rob Henderson. I think it's Rob Henderson. Anyways, look that up. It's one of the terms that came out in the last 5 years. It might be one of the most biggest sociological concepts to hit for the last decade, maybe in the last 20 years. Let me use an example of that. A person who decides, I make so much money, I have so many resources and stuff, I can start professing really stupid things like, God damn it, you should be allowed to get a face tattoo. And so they get a face tattoo. And it's fine for them because, well, they're a trust fund baby. They don't have to worry about getting hired on anybody. So they run around and they say, hey, let your freak flag fly. Go do whatever you want to do. You express yourself fully by getting a face tattoo. Well, Little Miss Face Tattoo shows up for a job to be a secretary or the receptionist at a law firm. She's not getting hired. All right, luxury belief. If we hit, and the basis of luxury belief is that people like to signal their social status. It used to be they signaled their social status by dressing nicer than everybody else. I am the boss, you can tell, because I'm the only one here in a three-piece suit that costs over $1,500 in 1973. I am obviously the man. All right. When cheap suits came in and suddenly everybody can look nice in a suit, the suit doesn't have that much virtue anymore. It's harder and harder to signal your status dressed that way. So we saw something really interesting, right? Silicon Valley. The guy in the hoodie was the owner of the company. Do you know why? Because he can't get fired for wearing a hoodie. That became the new social status, right? So, if we have a situation where white-collar workers are uncomfortable owning houses, right, and blue-collar workers are comfortable, put a tack in this. Let's see if this comes to pass. What happens when more people starts talking about having the luxury of renting becomes the ultimate social status? I don't have to buy. I can rent. And look, now with that I can rent, I'm not tied in any place. I can have my free-loving lifestyle. I'm not tied into these material matters that other people who buy houses to store their stuff in. I am free to float on the wind. Watch that. Watch for that. Okay, sorry. Another editorial. I'm a talky person today. All right, so that has to deal with active listings. Let's go to price per square foot because this is where we're going to start seeing. Oh, crap. There it is. All right. Average list price per square foot. Remember, we're going to see it in the listings. We're going to see it in under contracts, and then we're going to see it at closings. And there is our list price drop. All right. Started about the second week of February or so. All right. If you notice, historically, this doesn't happen until March. Here's one happening in April. Here's one happening in May. And this is normal. Okay, seasonality. There's that word again. Here's that normal seasonality. Why are we starting so early? Interesting. Is there going to be a crash? There's not going to be a crash. Is there going to be a correction? Can we see to the point where what happens if our appreciation just goes back to 2% like it has been historically? All right. What does this mean to you? If we are going in, if we are at a buyer's market, all right, and you think prices are going to go down, is it going to make sense to wait? Talk to your lender. I bet you it doesn't make sense to wait. Any bonuses that you'll be getting on the interest side, you can refinance in later. All right, so if you think interest rates are going to be lower, get the house now, because when the interest rates hit that magic button and those buyers start coming in, you want to be in the house already. If you're going to sit in there trying to buy the dip, well, just had a conversation about day traders the other day with the boss, talking about how people think they're buying the dip and they don't actually buy the dip. All right. So regardless, you buy a house, you're going to be writing a check, except instead of writing it to, Joey the greedy landlord, I'm writing it to Joey the greedy bank. All right. But you're still writing a check. All right. You have to pay for housing unless your parents are happy with you living in the basement. We don't have basements in Arizona. All right. So there's that. If you're afraid you're going to be upside down, all right, I always tell people you should not buy a house that you don't plan to live in for at least 3 years, 5 years. It used to be 5, then we went to 3. I might have to revise that and go back to 5. All right, because when we were, 6, 7, 8% appreciation year to year, yeah, 2 years would do it. Back when we were like 24 in 1 year, hell, 6 months would do it. All right, come on, just basically buy and hold those things and flip them real quick. All right. But if you're looking for the long term, this is a neighborhood you want to live in. You're planning on living at least 5 to 10 years in this place. That's the break-even point. And that always will be the break-even point. Right? Even with closing costs and everything on top of it. Because remember, if you're a seller, then you're not paying the buyer's agent. All right. But this is something you're going to want to be aware of, especially if you're on the seller side. If you were on the seller side of the whole thing and you were looking at sell your house in the next year, year and a half, well, now is really the time to get it on the market. Actually, January is the time to get on the market, but most of you weren't listening to me back then. You weren't listening to Daddy, and Daddy is very disappointed in you. Now, I want you to go out there into the yard and think about what you've done. Well, you watch children and pets around the water, right? I don't want you to take the family car and drive it into the water or anything like that when it's raining because you're too busy talking on your cell phone, all right? Keep your head on a swivel. Pay attention to you. I want you to work your circles, all right? And remember, the first circle is you and your mental health, all right? If you're feeling yourself stressed, anxious, overwhelmed, or anything like that, there are ways around that. There's other channels, all right? Don't take drugs. Don't take alcohol. Compulsive masturbation is, while fun, is also right the hell out, okay? And I want you guys to have a really great weekend. I'll talk to you guys all later.